create expensive urine. And I meant it. I was kind of mean about it. And everybody knew it, including my wife. But it was the change, was my wife suffered from chronic fatigue fibromyalgia. And she came down with a pneumonia, got into a chronic fatigue where she couldn't get out of bed for more than 1 hour a day for about 4 or 5 months, after still seeing 4 different medical specialists, on 10 different medications, no better. Some friend just happened to come over, a neighbor, and says, you know, these supplements help my husband after pneumonia, maybe they'll help you. But my wife knew how I felt, and so she came back, or when I came back from work that night, she asked me to get my permission. I said, honey, you can try anything, we're not helping you. There's nothing tougher for a physician to not be able to help his spouse. So she started it. And I'm telling you, within 3 days, you could notice a difference. Within 3 weeks, she's off most of her meds. And she's a horse trainer. You know, she hadn't been able to ride a horse for, she's a little older now. When she was 40, she thought she was 80. Now she's, I'm not going to tell her age, she'll get mad. But she feels like she's 40, and she's riding 2 horses a day. She's still showing. She's down to cow ranch horse work, and she was dressage, got up to the international level. But when I saw that change, I said to myself, that's either a miracle of the Lord or my worst fear was due to vitamins. That was my change. So I said, I've been telling my patients all the year, supplements don't do anything for your health. It's a waste of money. And I said, I better start researching it because we don't learn about supplementation in medical school. I mean, I got maybe 1 hour on proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, nothing on supplements. That was it. We learn our drugs. You're going to hear and see what I have. But so what I'm going to talk to you about today is health. And I want you to think you just walked into my office, you're getting a consult, and I'm talking to you like I talk to my patients because I want them to be healthier. And so I'm going to have you think about this. How would you define health? What's important? How important is your health to you? Most of my patients always think they're going to have their health. They don't even think about it until they lose their health. When they lose their health, it becomes the most important thing in their life. And look at some of the wealthy people that you've seen that have built these businesses, and all of a sudden they lose their health. I mean, they've got all the money in the world and they spend it to do it, but the trouble is it's too late. So you want to do it. It's much easier to protect your health than it is to try to regain your health after you've lost it. And so we know that lifestyles, the way you live your life, pretty much determines what kind of disease your doctor or I would be treating in the office as we age. It just happens. But heart disease, strokes, high blood pressure, cancer, diabetes especially. Did you know that 90% of type 2 diabetes can and should be prevented? You can totally prevent it. It's there. But it takes patient motivation. I can't give you a pill. It isn't magic. But anyway, that's it. And then we know osteoporosis is very much tied to lifestyle. So looking back at my traditional medical time, I really was treating end-stage disease and advanced stages of disease. I had very little time to talk about prevention or anything. But the specialists are even worse than I am. You take a cardiologist.
I'm sorry.
I mean, they're running around, they're up in ICU checking all their people, and then, oops, there's a code blue, cardiac arrest, ER, boom, they're down to the ER. And they resuscitate the patient, and whoops, we got to take them to the cath lab. We're doing, and then I got to go back up to the ICU. Well, then I got my patients waiting for me in my office. They go back and see the ones that they had the heart attack a week or two earlier. Then they go back and make rounds. That's their life, folks. They're treating acute end-stage disease. That's medicine. They don't have much time to talk about preventing anything. But they do have time to write you a statin drug. That's about it. Okay? But so traditional medicine is being drug-oriented and disease-oriented. That's what I was. And I always thought when I got my MD degree that I became that true healthcare expert I always wanted to be. But now, after my wife's experience in studying the medical literature about the health benefits of taking nutritional supplements, what you can do with healthy lifestyles to prevent some of this stuff and protect your health, I realized I was a disease care expert. I was not a healthcare expert. But now I think I've become a healthcare expert, and I want to share that expertise with you. And even what I was calling traditional preventive medicine, they come in for an annual physical, the women for their annual or wellness physical. What was I doing? I was doing a physical, getting blood work, checking everything, trying to find silent disease. They didn't know silent high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, elevated cholesterol. You know, I was looking, we might do a pap smear looking for cancer, a mammogram, or a PSA in men, looking for that early prostate cancer. That's what I was doing. And if I didn't find anything, no disease, kind of used to tap him on the shoulder and says, you're healthy, out the door you went. That's what I believed in health. My attitude's changed because now I understand that chronic disease is silent. You know, what does it feel like when your arteries start to harden? What does it feel like when you have early diabetes? What does it feel like when you have early cancer? Nothing. It's silent. So these things are going on, but I'm healthy. I feel good. I'm just, I'm on top of the world. But that's what's going on. But you have to understand, physicians, we as physicians diagnose disease at their very last stages. For example, heart disease. Heart disease, over 70% of the time, the first sign is either sudden death or a heart attack. First sign. They feel good. They play golf the day before. They play tennis, and then boom, there they go. If they call 911, they got about a third of a chance, to make it to the hospital alive. It's amazing. But then you look at Alzheimer's dementia or Parkinson's. The day I diagnosed someone with these two diseases in my office, 80%, the medical literature, 80% of the brain cells involved in those diseases has already been destroyed. There's not much left to save, okay? That's why I've never seen any Alzheimer patient take medication for Alzheimer's and see improvement. Not one. $800 to $1,000 a month. But when you get that, people are just, I'd do anything. It's too late. So what is it? We got to treat earlier. Cancers, all researchers agree that cancers take decades to develop. It doesn't happen overnight. It's been going on for years. We're fighting off early cancers all the time. That's what your immune system is doing. In fact, there was a study that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, that, women were checking cancers on the surface of the cell, but this is cervical cancer on the surface, and we check that with a pap smear. That's what we're doing. And there's a certain cancer that's called carcinoma in situ. In other words, it's right on the surface. It hasn't penetrated or been invasive. So they follow these people in some studies, and you know how long it took for them, their cancers to become invasive? 10 years. 10 years. They had cancer, but before it became invasive. So the American Cancer Society started to say, you don't need a pap smear every year. You can do it every 3 to 5 years. I don't know if any ladies remember that. Well, we all fought it because it's just human nature. You don't do it for 3 to 5 years, you just forget about it. And they don't come in, and the cervical cancer rate started to go up. But it just tells you this is slow. But take people who get pancreatic cancer, Steve Jobs and Patrick Swayze and people that, they didn't feel anything, and boom, there it is. But it's great, it's stage 4 right away when they first feel it. They barely make 6 months. Same thing with brain tumors. They didn't feel anything, and boom, they're gone in 6 months. All of this stuff. So the point I'm trying to get to is we diagnose disease in the very last stages. And disease is silent. So you can't rely on feeling good. I'm healthy. There's no problem with me. That's a wrong attitude, because I believe absence of disease is not health. Okay? just because of what I explained. I believe there are different levels of both disease and health. And in fact, I'm going to teach you how to become healthier based on that. So I believe, and I've put this together after 40 plus years of experience, that there are 10 levels of health and disease, and I'm going to share that with you. Level 5 is what I call neutral. It's what everybody would say is healthy. Well, you don't have any disease, no one's diagnosed anything, you're not on any medication, I'm feeling good, fine, great. That's super. Level 5. But I told you it's when my patients tell me that they're healthy and all that, I share one key thing. If you're not aggressively proactive in protecting your health, you are slowly losing your health. It's just a matter of time.
Wow.
I've been around a long time. It just happens. In fact, I'll share some things here, but that's why we want people to become proactive in protecting their health. It's much easier to protect your health, folks, than it is to try to regain it once you've lost it. I'm just telling you. I've been there on both sides of the coin. So levels of disease. Level 4 is when we can see measurable changes, and I'm going to use diabetes as an example, that are there. One thing is when I started to learn about prediabetes, metabolic dysfunction, all of that, in the 90s, 1996, 97, I had the opportunity because I had been doing annual physicals on the police department, local police department, sheriff's department, and firemen. So when one of these became diabetic, or I could tell they were pre-diabetic, I could go back and look at their blood work, their physical exam, for some times 15, 20, 25 years. I could see the small changes that occur. You just don't wake up one day and you're diabetic. But, so what are some of the measurable signs I began to look for? Expanding waist size. If a lady gets over 32, gets closer to 34 inches, got worried. Men, you get over 36 inches, moving on to 38, not good. That's the central weight gain that I saw. Blood pressure kind of creeping up. We used to use 140 over 90 as a standard. Once we started to understand this, we got worried when it was 130 over 88 or 90, 86. So the blood pressure starts coming up. There's another fat in the blood called triglycerides. It starts going up, and that good HDL cholesterol starts going down. And men, if your HDL is below 40, or women it's below 50, not a good sign. But no one's going to diagnose you, especially back then. They weren't diagnosing anybody with prediabetes or anything. They kind of laughed at what we were doing. But that's level 4. No diagnosis, but these changes are occurring. They're happening. There could be other things, but I'm using diabetes as an example of this. You could use Alzheimer's dementia as another one. There are times I'm a little forgetful, I'm forgetting this or that. In fact, I had a very close friend. I have a close friend who all of a sudden was starting to lose it, and we knew it. Well, that was fine, but then all of a sudden, he had trouble and got worse, and then he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia. Well, he fell back into level 3, but he still was functioning. He was doing fine. He was getting around. But then all of a sudden, a few years later, a couple of years later, he was trying to drive to Walmart, and he got lost. He didn't know where he was going, and that happened 2 or 3 different times. Of course, then he couldn't drive. He couldn't fill out a check. He couldn't write, so he couldn't write a check. He couldn't do this. But pretty soon, his life got taken away from him. And that's level 3. And the diabetic would be the one that comes in, and finally their blood sugar goes up. And the doctor looks at him and says, "You have diabetes." Well, he's got a disease. Well, then you're in level 3. That's when you've actually been diagnosed and are being treated for one of these diseases. I'm using those 2 examples. Well, then life goes on. The diabetic, the average diabetic in the United States treated, their hemoglobin A1C is 9.2. That's treated diabetic. They want you less than 6.5. We're not doing a very good job. But what happens is that diabetic, I'm starting to get neuropathy in my feet and my legs. Then pretty soon my kidney function's going down. Pretty soon I can't see well because of diabetic retinopathy. all of a sudden they're on dialysis. And they're going over to the dialysis clinic and having dialysis 3, maybe 4 times a week. Their life is, they're becoming disabled by their disease. They can have amputation, they can do other things. The Alzheimer's dementia patient, all of a sudden he can't function, he can't do that, he's got to have pretty much continued care. They stay at home, maybe for a while, until the caregiver just can't do it, or they get worse, they're a danger to themselves, to the family, all that. And then, but level 2, you become disabled by your disease. Well, take the Alzheimer's dementia patient. Pretty soon, they're in the nursing home. Pretty soon, they're in the lock ward. They can't do anything. They know nobody. And so what I tell my patients is you're living too short, you're dying too long. Think about that. We suffer from these chronic diseases. Now, we haven't died. We're there. We can be like Ronald Reagan, lived into the 90s, but didn't recognize his family or his spouse for 10 years before he died. What kind of life is that? My old coach would tell me, I want to live till I die. He was pretty simple, but that's a good point, So we're talking quality of life. We're talking about trying to prevent these chronic diseases because they progress. And trust me, the Parkinson's patients, we talk about Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. Look at them, I don't know if anybody saw Muhammad Ali come out and light the torch right in the last Olympics. This guy had all the money in the world. He could have done anything. But there comes a point, it doesn't matter. You can take all the drugs, everything, and they don't help. So prevention is the key. Becoming proactive and protecting your health is the key. So I teach my patients, you want to be proactive and not reactive. What do I mean by that? Well, so many people are out there, they're not paying attention to health. They think they're always going to have their health. They come in and they find out they've got something. I'm diabetic, I have heart disease, I've got cancer. They get down on their knees and say, Doctor, save me. That's true. That's being reactive. You're reacting to your situation. I'm trying to teach you to be proactive in trying to protect your health and in many cases try to regain your health if you've lost it. It's a little harder, but you can do it. And so the levels of health now, I want to share and go through. Levels of health is, level 6 is basically the body balance program, or what used to be the Slender Edge program. That's it. That's level 6. You do that, and you firmly establish these new healthier lifestyles. I don't care if you're level 3, 4, 5. You will go up to level 6. It happens, especially if you're in early level 3. And that is amazing. Level 7, we live in a toxic world. We collect heavy metals, toxins, and we got to try to get rid of them. Once we get rid of them, we try to move on to level 8, which is the environment, and protect ourselves the best we can. We can't live in a bubble, but the best we can so we don't have them get as bad as they were. Level 9 is committed. I'm committed to all these changes, but I tell my patients, you have freedom. I at least want to see you get to level 6. If you don't want to go on, that's fine. But at least try to get to level 6 and be committed to that. But anyway, that's committed, but they're not perfect. And then you've got the level 10 person, and they are totally committed. And the only thing I warn my number 10s is the fact, don't get so carried away that it creates stress in your life. We haven't talked much about stress here, but it's a major factor in health too. And so I think everybody has their own faith or what they put their trust in and all that. I just don't get into it. It's not appropriate here. But the point is, that's the levels of health that I've seen. And so let's start out with Partner Co's Body Balance Program. Level 6 of health. Well, first of all, it's a 4-part program. And it's first a healthy diet, learning to eat a healthy diet. Number 2, getting your body move, at least modest exercise, aerobic especially. Number 3, nutritional supplementation. And I'm going to explain why that's one of the most important things that you need to do every day of your life. And then, of course, we have Slender X Accelerate, which is, to me, discipline in a bottle. And it helps us make these behavioral changes, which are hard, very hard for people that live their life to make those changes. So let me explain the healthy diet. First of all, you have to understand a concept of simple sugars and complex carbohydrates. You see, sugars, carbohydrates, are just long chains of sugar. In 1901, look at that. That's when that theory came out. 1901, a long time ago. They thought, well, the shorter the chain of sugar, simple sugars, would break down and raise your blood sugar quicker. The long chains, complex carbohydrates, would take longer to break down and raise your blood sugar. That was a theory, still is today. All registered, I shouldn't say all, that's kind of, most registered dietitians today do not believe this. Believe the glycemic index, what I'm going to tell you. They believe a carb is a carb is a carb, and they just count carbs and carbohydrate exchange. They do that in the United States. I travel all over the world. They don't do that in Canada. They don't do it in Australia. They don't do it in Asia because they understand what I'm sharing with you. David Jenkins, a researcher out of the University of Toronto, said, I'm going to challenge this dumb little theory here. And I'm going to just put it to the test. I'm going to give my patients or, people in the studies, a carbohydrate, and I'm going to measure the rise in blood sugar and see what happens. And he started out by using glucose as, because that's what it all turns to, as the standard, and then compare everything to that. And so he called it the glycemic index. So here's what he did. When you wake up in the morning, you have a fasting blood sugar, then he gave a particular load of glucose. And this was a spike, it went up and went down. So he gave glucose a glycemic index of 100. Well, then all the foods, I'm using sweet cherries here as an example, but then he, same amount of carbs or calories, gave it to him and only went up 22% as high as the glucose. So that has a glycemic index of 22. That's how he did that. So that's called the glycemic index. So here's a representative of foods. Okay, there's glucose, glycemic index of 100, baked potato 85, mashed potatoes 91, cornflakes 84, all rices are in the 80s, pretty much everyone. Bread, white bread is 70, brown bread is 71. It's higher, but I eat brown bread. I'm doing good. Table sugar, the simple sugar, 61. So here we have bread, flour, rice, cereal, potatoes that are worse at spiking your blood sugar than sugar. And yet we all worry about sugar. And it's on the top of the USDA food pyramid. What's on the bottom? Grains, bread, rice, flour, 8 to 11 servings. So our USDA government has created the diabetes obesity epidemic in the United States. And it's politically motivated. I've got nutritionists from Harvard all over the written books. They agree with me. But then look at the whole foods. Peach, 28. You could do apple is 27. Pear is 28 or 29. Sweet cherries, 22. Black beans, 20. Look at the glycemic chart. Anything less than 55 is low glycemic, considered low glycemic. Medium is 55 to 69, and high is greater than 70. I'm going to explain why this is not good, but before I do that, I want to share a new concept. Now that I can visit with you a little bit, we're always time restricted, so I'm going to teach you about glycemic load. Glycemic load is much more important than glycemic index. Some of you are familiar, but most of you aren't. Glycemic load is defined as the glycemic index times the grams of carb divided by 100. And then when you look at that, when you do that, a low glycemic load is less than 10. Between 10 and 20 is moderate glycemic load. Greater than 20 is high glycemic load. So we're going to take spaghetti. That's a good one. Look at that. The glycemic index is 41. It's in the low glycemic level. But look at grams. It contains 52 grams of carbs. So when you do 41 times 52 divided by 100, it has a glycemic load of 21. Now that's 1 cup of pasta. They went around, there's a study came out, they went to all the Italian restaurants, they just did an average. When you get a serving of pasta, it averages 7 cups. And it goes down easy, right? So that is going to spike your blood sugar, folks, even though it's low glycemic. But now let's take carrots. You know, carrots have a kind of pretty high glycemic index of 49, 5 grams of carbs. Okay, we do the math. Divided by 100, 2.4. There's a point in it. 2.4 glycemic load. Folks, you can't eat carrots fast enough to spike your blood sugar. You can't. You just can't do it. All the veggies are that way. I mean, I can put up watermelon, it's 72 glycemic index, but it's got a glycemic load of under 5. It's 4. And, you know, so that's what it is. But, so what happens is we start to realize, we got to understand, why is it so bad to spike your blood sugar? You know, what's the big deal? Well, 80% of the carbohydrates consumed in the United States and Canada are high glycemic in the adults and children. 80%. So when you wake up in the morning, there's a good chance you're going to have high glycemic breakfast, bagel, orange juice, whatever. So the blood sugar goes, this is your fasting blood sugar. That's what you've slept 6-8 hours. That's your blood sugar to wake up. Well, then you have the high glycemic meal, and it shoots up the blood sugar. The body must control blood sugar in a very narrow range because our brain thinks on blood sugar. And so this stimulates the release of insulin and overstimulates the release of insulin. But insulin's job is to transport that glucose into the cell to be used as energy or stored as glycogen or fat. Well, then the blood sugar comes down almost as fast as it went up. But look at here, it drops below the fasting blood sugar into the hypoglycemic or low blood sugar level. When that goes down, 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 you get a little weak, shaky weakness. You can maybe get a little confused. In fact, diabetics that take insulin, they can go into a diabetic coma. But this low blood sugar now stimulates the release of your stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol and all these to drive that blood sugar back to normal. And it comes up to normal, but now you got all in your blood these high levels of stress hormones, which leads to an uncontrollable hunger. In other words, you have to eat again. And you usually crave another high glycemic meal. And so you do it again and just keep doing this over and over again, day in, day out. It's kind of like hollering wolf all the time. You keep stimulating the insulin over time, you become less sensitive to your own insulin. That's when you tip over into metabolic dysfunction, prediabetes, there are all kinds of names for it. The body compensates for that by making more insulin. So blood insulin levels keep coming up to compensate for that, but when that happens, you start to gain an unusual amount of weight around your middle. Blood pressure goes up. Cholesterol, triglycerides go up. The good cholesterols go down. Eventually, the blood sugars go up. Okay? Not good. Not good. That's why you'll hear us talk about killer fat tomorrow, because the central weight is associated with so much of this going on. And so, you know, that's where we are with that. It's called hyperphagia. And in fact, the medical literature shows you spike your blood sugar one time, you set off this uncontrollable hunger, which is a normal physiologic response to just spiking your blood sugar. That sets off this uncontrollable hunger for 2 to 3 days. So if you're craving and looking around, yeah, I'm hungry, I admit. Well, think about what you ate the day or two before, because it takes that long. So cheating is not the best thing. Now we got Sugar Stop, you do, you know, but I'm saying don't just use Sugar Stop for sugar. Remember, I've got all these other foods. You know, if you go off the diet plan that's in the Sunrise book, I would take Sugar Stop. Okay? So let's do the principles of a healthy diet just as a review. You want to eat healthy, good, low glycemic and low glycemic load carbohydrates. Okay? Whole fruits, whole vegetables. You know, avoid processed grains, sugar, and white potato. They're the enemies. When I sit in my office, you know, and I see someone with prediabetes, and I say, I don't want you to have any bread, flour, rice, cereal, pasta, or potatoes, or sugar. Because they're addicted, man. They're addicted. And I mean, seriously, there's some get up, there's no way I'm not going to do it. Because they know they're addicted. You know, there's certain foods that addict, and there's certain foods that satisfy. You know, you can't just have one Lay's potato chip. And when you know, we've been through the parties, the holidays, and the host or hostesses had their own party, and they got the chips and the nuts and the pretzels and all this, but then here's the apple and the oranges and the bananas and, you know, everything there. So what's a host or hostess doing? Well, they're always filling up the chips and that, because that's good stuff, right? No, those are the addictive foods. Have you ever tried to eat 3 apples in a row? Or 3 bananas? I don't know if you can. I couldn't. But the point is, why can't you? Well, the apple or the banana, they satisfy. The other foods addict. So the strongest drug you're putting in your mouth are the foods you choose to eat. And you can get out of this carbohydrate addiction by doing this in maybe 5 to 10 days at the most. And you'll notice a difference. It happens. And pretty soon you're not craving this stuff and you do well. You can set it off quickly, as I told you, just by cheating. But then we want to add to that the good fats. You know, we've been in a fear of fat for the last half century because of Big Pharma. Oh, you can't have fat. Well, the body needs fat. But there are good fats and there are bad, just like there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. You got to figure out what's good. Well, you want the good omega-3 fats or the monounsaturated fats. Those are healthy. They decrease your risk of heart disease much more than even many of the drugs. But the bad fats, you want to decrease saturated fats, which we need some of, but you want to eliminate the rancid or trans fats. And yet, remember margarine? When we brought that out, that's a health food. We've been fooled before, but this stuff here, but then you choose good protein based on what kind of fat it contains, okay? Cold water fish is better because it has, you know, a lot of the omega-3 fats. You know, so that's what you're doing. Olive oil and stuff like that. So that's what we're talking about. This is what it is. It's simple. You know, patients come up to me and after they hear this and say, well, here's a label. You know, what do you think of this food? I said, I don't have to look at it. Why? It says, you got a label. If you got a label, it's the wrong food. You've got to be on the outside of the grocery store. Whole Foods, the way God made it. The apple's better than applesauce. The applesauce is better than apple juice. The apple juice is better than the sweetened, undiluted, or diluted apple juice. You know, if I take whole oats and soak them overnight, and then I have them, that's low glycemic. If I have slow-cooked rolled oats, it's a moderate glycemic index. If I have instant oatmeal, it's high glycemic. The more man processes things, the more it sets up that we can absorb the sugars and set off this dumb hormonal imbalance. What's the hormonal imbalance? Well, as your blood insulin levels are going up, the other hormone counter is glucagon, the fat-releasing hormone, is going down. That's the big imbalance. So as you start to eat right, exercise, and do this, it makes a difference. And so exercise is part of the program. The only thing the body cannot handle is inactivity. Okay? So the thing is, just get moving. You don't have to be a superstar. Simply walking 30 minutes, 5 days a week, not every day, is what the medical literature says. But it can be biking, hiking, swimming, racquetball, pickleball, anything. Get the body moving. But aerobics improves insulin sensitivity. Now, weight resistance is great, but I want it combined with aerobic. But that's basically it. And it improves insulin sensitivity from a different mechanism. Well, what's the next thing? Well, the next thing is called oxidative stress. You know, oxygen is necessary for life itself, but it's also inherently dangerous for our existence. What do I mean by that? Well, as you utilize oxygen to create energy and life itself, you get a cellular exhaust, which is a charged oxygen molecule we call a free radical. And we've heard that. But it has an actual electrical charge which gives it rapid movement. And if it's not readily neutralized by an antioxidant, It can damage the cell wall, the vessel wall, proteins, fats, and even the DNA of the nucleus. So what, the nucleus of the DNA. So what happens is, you are rusting inside. It's the same process in terms of cut apple brown, rust metal. We're rusting inside. That's the problem. And so this oxidative stress in the medical literature has been shown to be the root cause of well over 100 chronic degenerative diseases. It's the Hall of Fame of diseases you and I have left to avoid: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, arthritis, macular degeneration. It goes on and on. Everybody talks about inflammation, but you got to understand the damage occurs first, to the lining of the artery or in the cell, and then comes along the immune system trying to repair it, which is an inflammatory process. That's a secondary. So inflammation is involved, but it starts with this, okay? And so when my patients come in, I know a lot of young people like this car. I like a Model T up there. It's really in good shape. Someone has referred. But are you winning the war within? Because this generation, us today, because of our stressful lifestyles, our over-medicated society, and our polluted environment, air, food, and water, we have to deal with more free radicals than any generation that's ever walked the face of this earth. So most of my patients come in looking like this, all rusted out. And they're, that's when they are reactive and they're getting down, "Save me, doctor." And we don't do a good job of that, to be honest with you. Life goes on, they struggle, but we try to work it. So are you winning the war within? So here's the key when I practice nutritional medicine. Balance is the key. You want to have enough antioxidants and their supporting nutrients to neutralize the free radicals that you're producing. Then there is no oxidative stress. I'm not treating a disease. This is about health. There's no drug that does that. It's your antioxidants and all the nutrients in the supplementation that does it. So that's the answer. It's supporting our body's natural defenses. And the best way to do this is high quality, complete and balanced nutritional supplements. So when I practice nutritional medicine, here's my approach. I want everybody not only to have a good diet, be exercising, I want them to take high quality, complete and balanced nutritional supplements and provide cellular nutrition. My number one is optimals. You can take 3 optimal V, 2 optimal M, morning with breakfast, and again at night with supper or evening meal. And you've got cellular nutrition. I've looked at every nutrient there, but that's cellular nutrition. Now, some people want to take their liquid, and I'm going to talk about Tish and Noni Douche. I'm going to talk about MOA. Some people have Magna Cal D as they get older. They're worried about osteoporosis. They need more calcium, vitamin D, magnesium. That's fine, but I call that cellular nutrition. But I deal with a lot of people who come in who have lost their health. They have MS, they have rheumatoid, they have Crohn's disease, they have asthma, the medical literature shows they have a lot of inflammation, but they also have severe, much higher oxidative stress, more free radicals. So I need to add to cellular nutrition. 2 of my favorites are BioPro-Q and Vanilla. And so I'll kind of go through this a little bit because remember the principle is balance is the key. So cellular nutrition I define as providing all the essential nutrients to the cell at their optimal or advanced levels. Not RDA levels, but optimal levels have been shown to provide a health benefit in our medical literature. That's all I've done for 20 years, folks, is read and look at the levels that it takes. For example, vitamin E. The RDA is 30 international units. RDAs, all they do is prevent acute deficiency diseases. That's the minimal amounts. You don't get plague, scurvy, or rickets. Well, we don't have that much, but we do have heart disease, we do have cancer, we have diabetes. So you look at the literature, and the optimal level is 400 international units of vitamin E. Well, just go out and eat 400 units of vitamin E. That's what I used to tell my patients. Just have a healthy diet. You only need to get in 33 heads of spinach, or 27 pounds of butter, or 5 pounds of wheat germ. I had a patient buy a 5-pound jar of wheat germ, and it took him, 3 years to get it down. Just kidding. But anyway, so what happens is, that's what, and I can do vitamin C, the RDA is 60 milligrams, but you don't see a health benefit to get to 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams. Well, that's only 18 large oranges or 80 avocados, or, you're not going to be able to eat it, folks. This day and age, you need to be supplementing a healthy diet. It's the only way to do it, but you got to want high quality, pharmaceutical grade, produced in an FDA registered facility where they can also do over-the-counter drugs. You get the best, i.e. partner company. Okay? That's where we are. Well, the reason I like everything together, because they study all these nutrients together, but what we find is that they work together. Antioxidants, they work in various parts of the body against different free radicals. For example, vitamin E is the best antioxidant within the cell membrane. Vitamin C is the best antioxidant within the plasma. Glutathione is the best intracellular antioxidant. But what people don't realize is vitamin C replenishes the vitamin E, so it can be used over and over and over again. So 1 + 1 is not 2. When you get them together, where they do the studies, all of a sudden it's 20 or 30 times more potent, 40 times. They also need B cofactors or they can't do their job. So you want the B cofactors, which is in cellular nutrition, along with the antioxidant minerals. So you want to take it all. I don't want to worry about it. So much time has been spent in the last half century trying to figure out what you need a little more of, a little less of, and we'll do a hair sample, which is hard for me, or urine test, muscle test, iridology, blood test. So you need a little of this. No. The problem is not a nutritional deficiency. The problem is oxidative stress. And so what you want to do is you want to take enough, and so within 6 months on the optimals, which was studied, all your nutritional deficiencies have been corrected, and all the supporting nutrients are brought up to their optimal levels. That's what it's all about. So that's what we're doing. And then you take Tahitian noni juice. People want to, hey, it's great. This is what you want to take, great. It's a start. It's full of some of the most potent antioxidant superfoods known to man. People get an effect. You start taking for the same principles, okay? But they have in prediabetes, it has a unique thing, because blood sugars start to go up, and what they do, they attach to proteins, and the aging process accelerates. Those are called advanced glycation end products on the protein. But noni juice contains iridoids in a large amount, which prevent that from happening and actually can reverse it. So there's a real anti-aging quality with Tahitian noni juice. And then people like MOA. They want to go with MOA. It's got 35 superfoods, 5 very high levels of mushrooms, but loaded with superfoods and all kinds of antioxidants. So that's good. So when people ask me, well, Dr. Strand, what do you recommend to your patients? I recommend the Optimals. And I want to add Tahitian noni juice to it, or limu, or MOA. And so if my patients are taking one of those, I want them to add the Optimals. If they're taking the Optimals, I like them to add one of the juices. They work together. Remember, balance is the key. And people notice it, but it's part of a healthy lifestyle. You don't take this for a month or two. That's like me going out and saying, well, I exercised really hard for 2 weeks last year. Or I ate pretty well for a few days. Then I kind of cheated for the next month or a half. It doesn't work that way, folks. This is important. It's your health. It's the most valuable asset you have. If you don't believe that, lose your health and you'll find out. So that's kind of what we do. But now I want to talk. I deal with a lot of patients who come in who have, they have MS or Crohn's disease, or they have some illness I'm treating, rheumatoid arthritis, where the medical literature shows me they have much higher levels of oxidative stress, free radical damage, than normal patients who feel healthy. It's there. Well, I need more for those patients to balance it than just the cellular nutrition. So one of my favorites is to add vanilla, which is one of the most potent antioxidants known because it has grapeseed extract. Plus, it's the best grapeseed extract in the world from Mendina out of Italy. 50 times more potent than vitamin C and 50 times more potent than vitamin E. But here's the key. It penetrates all tissue. It's a small molecule. Gets into around the brain, the nerves, the eyes. It penetrates skin. It's unbelievable. I can't tell you the results I've had. And if someone has anything like a runny nose or sneezing, wheezing in your lungs, or swollen joints, consider Vanali. Okay? Add Vanali. Give it some time. Diabetics, I always put this with diabetics because one of the things is the diabetes weakens the arteries. This strengthens it. And I have stories I can't tell here and share, but trust me, it's very effective. But I add that to cellular nutrition. Because I want balance, so I use my more potent antioxidants. My next best enhancer is BioPro-Q. A lot of you, this one kind of gets lost. You don't know how good this is. BioPro-Q, CoQ10 is what it is responsible for over 90% of energy production in every cell. And as we get older, our CoQ10 levels go down, fatigue, tiredness, muscle aches, all this. So what happens is BioPro-Q can replenish that, and we have the ubiquinol form, which is absorbed 5 to 10 times, it should be 5 to 10 times greater than the ubiquinol form. When I used ubiquinol form in my practice years and years ago, I would do blood levels in my cancer patients, my heart failure patients, and stuff like that, because I wanted their CoQ10 level at certain levels. Well, to get those levels, I would have to use 12 to 16 of the coquinone, which is the poorly absorbed. So PartnerCo, when they asked me, what do you want? I said, I want the ubiquinol form. Well, this is made by Konica, a Japanese company. It's the highest pharmaceutical grade you can find. Now, I know it's being sold over the counter, Costco, different ones. I'll take ubiquinol because we know that it's effective. And but the trouble is, the price you pay, I know there's not 100 milligrams, if that's what they say, probably 10 milligrams. Because they said they pay the same price because it all comes from Konica. But that's what you can do in nutritional supplementation. There's no regulation. They can do whatever they want. And we've studied it. We know that happens. But the thing is, the CoQ10 levels drop as we age, but also it drops if you're on a statin drug. See, statin drugs block the production of cholesterol, but it also blocks the production, our internal production of CoQ10. And they knew this back in the 70s. Smith, Kline, and French came out with the first statin drug called Mevacor. But they had a patent to put CoQ10 with their statin drug because they knew what was going on. They got approved by the FDA, but they took the CoQ10 out and didn't put it in. And it took about 20 years for them to start to realize. And I used to argue this with pharmaceutical reps all the time. But it is critical, CoQ10 is critical for all cells, but really critical for the high energy cells, the heart muscle, the brain, and the immune system. It is the greatest optimizer of our immune system. I mean, I could tell you stories in immune deficiency. I can't really use the diseases and stuff, but it works. It is there. So if anybody is worried about their immune system or they want to have a stronger one, BioPro-Q added to cellular nutrition. If you have a weakened heart for any reason, what they have found is that the CoQ10 level has dropped because they're using up their fuel source. Well, you just add back CoQ10 and you'll see improvement. Not because we're curing anything, but we're providing the energy source, and it does make a difference. But it's a healthy thing to do. It's just what the body needs. And it's also great for the brain. It prevents oxidative stress. But then we go to level 7, okay? we've handled, we're doing level 6, diet, exercise, and nutritional supplementation. It's part of a lifestyle. It's not something you do a little of here and there, but this is what you've done. I've become proactive. So now, I don't care if you're in level 3, 4, or 5, you can jump to level 6. Once you get to 2, it's tough. Once you become disabled by your disease, it's usually too late. Not that you couldn't improve. But anybody that's just been diagnosed with diabetes, I do it all the time. They can get out of that, boom, back here, especially under type 2. And so we do detox and elimination. I'll talk to you about that, but you got to look at restoratives. Okay? I call this a detox center in a bottle. I used to send my patients to a detox center. They give up 10 to 14 days of work, go down, spend 15 to 20 grand, get on all this stuff, get detox, come home. They couldn't stay on the diet they wanted for about 3 days. You can't be too, I don't want to get so strong and so anal that you can't do it. This is practical stuff. It's not hard to do, and it's available. But Restorix contains zeolite, spirulina, chlorella, a few other things that actually all are able to help the body get rid of heavy metals. Once you get rid of heavy metals, which are acidic, make the body acidic, your body can become alkaline, more alkaline. And that's a very critical thing as far as the body is concerned. It also enhances the immune system. The GI tract is responsible for 70-80% of our immune system. And you get a healthier GI tract. Supports the liver function because that's our detox center. So how does zeolite work? Well, heavy metals, cadmium, mercury, lead, all of these have a positive charge. Well, zeolite is a unique material that has a negative charge. And so what they do is, as zeolite passes through the GI tract, and the blood supply is real close to it because you're absorbing all your food in the capillaries, it actually attracts the heavy metals like a magnet. It literally does. It pulls it out, holds on to it till you eliminate it. That's how it works. Not very complicated. It doesn't go into the system. It works in the GI tract. And that's it. And so Restorix gives you that option, and everybody has to decide themselves, how much is my toxic exposure? What do I do? And take it, you can take it for a month, you can take it for a year. There's no harm with doing that. But it varies. But once you detox, then we move on to level 8, which is environment. You know, now that I've cleaned out my body, I'm doing healthy lifestyles, I cleaned out my body, and I know well then, how do I get healthier? Well, you protect yourself from your own environment. And you got to look at the water you drink, the food you're eating, what I'm spraying, the air I breathe. And so let's look at that. Cleaning up your environment. Number 1, drinking pure water, purity water bottle. Just doing that, it's really critical to drink pure water. We don't need anything else that's in it. Breathing clean air. You know, we have purity air filters. And I tell people, at least in your bedroom, your house, breathe, when you're sleeping for 6-8 hours, be breathing clean air. Begin eating organic food whenever possible. Now, we got a lot of toxins in our food, and a lot of us aren't even aware of it. But I think there's going to be a change in the medical community. It's happening. Yes. And what's happening is we're going to get this stuff out, we're going to be more aware of it, and we're going to really do better. Yes. And I think that's coming. And so hopefully the organic label will mean more. We're getting rid of a lot, especially in our processed foods, which we'd like to avoid anyway. But that's something. But eliminate toxins from your environment. And here's some ways to do that. Avoid the use of pesticides. Avoid the use of herbicides. Trust me, Roundup is not your friend. Glyphosate are not good. We've shown that. Here's something people don't think about. You start feeling worse or that, you've had maybe a little water damage. You get mold in your house. I've gotten patients that come in and we go through all this, well, shoot, it was their house was destroying them. And mold is a big, big item. Avoid heavy metal exposure the best you can. You know, sometimes we can't totally do it. We can't live in a bubble. And there you periodically can still go back and detox, but the best you can. Non-toxic skincare is another thing we would like to see, and I know Partner Co. is aware of this and working. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised here in the future. I can't say when, but then also avoid the EMFs, the radiation, all of the stuff that we've got, the 5G towers. And all you have to do is get a little meter. I've got one at home, and I can check everything. And try to at least get it down or fight it the best way you can. There's some things there. But then you do all that, then you have level 9. I'm committed to all these changes. I am really committed. It's a lifestyle. I am focused. I am going to do this. It just becomes a good behavior, not a bad behavior. It just becomes good. So, once you do it, it just becomes a lifestyle. That's level 9. Okay? Level 10 is I'm totally committed. They don't cheat. The number 9s cheat a little bit. Level 9. But I always warn my totally committed individuals and patients not to get too anal because stress, it can cause a lot of stress in your life. And I haven't talked much about stress today because it's a hard thing to get, but I'll tell you, it has effect on your health. I can share stories that increases all of that. So managing your stress level throughout is a real critical thing. But don't make lifestyle stressful. If you do it and you're happy with it, they kind of sometimes become the food police and want to tell you. So that's it. So this is a copy. I don't know, did you get that, Elizabeth? Did you? Not yet, but we're going to get this and try to, it's a PDF file where I talk about on supplementation, free radicals, antioxidants, all of the RDA, all of that. And it's yours. It's on a PDF file. You can share with anybody you want, especially people that are looking. They got to understand there's a health benefit for taking high-quality supplements. It's not something you do. That's what I'm trying to educate. That's my role. And as far as that goes, here's my book, What Your Doctor Doesn't Know About Nutritional Medicine. This is the one that I started with. This talks about oxidative stress, how to handle it. A lot of different. It's got 30 plus clinical stories that I've documented in my medical practice. I cannot share with you. But when you see it using my approach I just explained to you, you're going to see the health benefits. I just had a lady come up to me. I don't know if she's in this group, but I talked to her and her husband, and he had some major problems. And they always, just started a little bit and did well, and he's corrected everything. So you have a chance to regain your health. Not everybody, it's hard. But this book explains that. You can get that at Amazon, either an ebook or order the book. Healthy for Life is what is my book on diabetes, obesity, epidemic. It tells you everything about the Body Balance Program. And I share the glycemic index, glycemic load, I explain it all. It's only available on Amazon as an ebook and Kindle. I'm trying to get the paperback back up. It's been on there, it's book. But anyway, that's where we are. That's where I'm going to end. And I appreciate your time and everything. And,